What's going on, Mark? We had some great fights over the weekend. We had a stellar pay-per-view, and we had Katie Taylor fighting on the zone as well. Mark, let's talk about the pay-per-view first. For the first time in a long time, I paid money for a pay-per-view, and I actually felt like I got my money's worth. The fights were good all the way through, and I'm just wondering, why did PBC wait to the final pay-per-view show in the history of Showtime to do something like this? How do you think the pay-per-view did, and were you conflicted about watching Alabama and Auburn face each other while this pay-per-view was going on?
You know what, David? I do like football a lot, and Auburn was playing. I really was looking forward to this fight. I'm a boxing fan first, so I did watch this one, but 11 million people watched that Auburn fight, so it definitely took a little bit of fans away from last night's fight when the SEC, is on the Saturday night. It's tough to compete with them. $85. I'm still not a fan of it. I don't think people should be paying $85 to watch boxing. I'm still with the small people. I don't want to pay $85, even if it's Muhammad Ali. 85 bucks, man. It's getting out of hand. We need to find a way to lower the prices. Saying that though, this pay-per-view was awesome. I wouldn't pay $85 though, but it was awesome. It was jam-packed with good fights. Every single fight turned out well too. You can put a good card together, but then they can be a dud, right? And in this one, every single fight was pretty entertaining that night.
Well, Mark, tell us you didn't pay for the pay-per-view without telling us you didn't pay for the pay-per-view.
I didn't pay for the pay-per-view. I will
um,
continue to cheat until they lower their prices.
yeah, I think you're still cheating even after that. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about Hector Garcia versus Lamont Roach. Roach wins a split decision and is the new WBC 130-pound champion. That was a good opener for the pay-per-view, a world title fight at that. Mark, how did you see the fight?
That was good. An opener with a world title on the line, and it was a very good scrap. Hector Garcia versus Lamont Roach. Hector Garcia came out short. Lamont Roach looked outstanding. He put on a lot of pressure, came out victorious. But Hector Garcia didn't look bad. Well, he got beat, but he did good enough to say, sometimes you watch a really good fight and afterwards you go with the loser and you say, I'd like to see him against. This is one of those fights where we saw the loser really not lose because he's still going to be in the mix as well. And Roach is going to move on. Great fight.
Yeah, I thought Roach put on a lot more pressure. It came out offensive, and
Yeah.
he was really swinging hard. He was putting in some power shots, which is we're not really accustomed to seeing from him. Doesn't have a big KO ratio, but he looked like he rocked Hector Garcia a few times in that fight. It was a close fight. When you think about it, there was a controversial moment in the 12th round. Hector Garcia keeps his titles by a split draw. I know we've talked about instant replay in boxing. This is one of those situations where instant replay would have changed the outcome of the fight, a very important moment in the fight. We need to get boxing into the modern times and start implementing a lot of every other sport has it, right?
Even baseball came around. The sport that loves their traditions and doesn't like any change, they've already changed it. Doesn't have to be where it interrupts the game like the other three major sports in America. They can do it afterwards, or if it has an impact in the 12th round, or after round one, in between round one, if there was a mistake, they can look at it, have an extra official, change that over. They need to implement something to change these things because these outcomes have impact and financial impact on these fighters, and they put their life on the line. So they should correct some of that stuff.
Right. When you got it, if you have the ability to get it right, get it right. Moving on to Subriel Matias versus Shahjahan Ergashev. Mark, this is what I thought was going to be the fight of the night. Turned out not to be the fight of the night. Ergashev retires in his corner after the fifth round due to a right leg injury. Ergashev complained that he couldn't move around the ring. At first, Mark, when I heard that, I thought Ergashev was just looking for a way out because Subriel was turning up the heat on him. Turns out, though, when I tried to find out more information about the injury, he had a leg injury earlier this year during the summer. It was around July. He was requesting a tune-up fight before this fight because he was dealing with an injury and he wanted to test out his leg. It's possible that this leg injury came back to get him again during this fight. All I know is we kind of saw the writing on the wall after the second round. Ergashev started to fade a little because his power did not seem to have any effect on Subriel, and Subriel was coming on strong. This guy looks like a real threat at 140 pounds. Mark, I can't wait to see him get in the mix. I hope one of the big names at 140 pounds decides to take this guy on.
Man, Subriel is a badass, man. He's good. You know, he was heard after the first round telling Jay Panda, actually not heard, Jay Panda said this. Matias, after the first, went into the corner and told Jay Panda, Jefe, no pega como pensábamos, no trae nada, vamos a darle. So they, you know, basically he told him, hey, he doesn't hit like we thought he did. Let's go for it. Now, he also said, and you know, that's when Matias started turning it on. But Matias also said the reason that he's so successful right now and having such great success on his knockouts and looking so good these past few fights, it's all in the sparring and Jay's genius way of reviewing video. When they got ready for Ergashev, he gave an example of what Jay Panda does. Jay will look at video of Ergashev, right? Several fights. He'll start getting on BoxRec, looking for all his opponents. Then he'll find an opponent that looks kind of like you and has a similar game plan. Then he starts studying that opponent, regardless of if he won or he lost. He looks at him because it's similar to the style that he wants. And this one, they studied a gentleman by the name of Angel Martinez who fought Ergashev, and they pretty much matched that whole game plan. Even though it wasn't successful for him, they made it successful for them. This is the time and effort that Jake Panda puts into his fighters. Not only that, in sparring, he'll bring 4 or 5 guys that look like your opponent and top notch fighters through his network of fighters all over the world that he can bring in. Uh, Matias said he's sparred all over the world, but sparring at Jay Panda's gym is something different. Not only do you have the talent there, but the brains to go with it and get you prepared for your opponents. That duo right there, I don't see them losing for a while at 140. What do you think's next for him at 140, David?
I mean, I don't know, Mark. I've kind of got a bad feeling about this. I think a lot of the top names may look at Subriel as a guy that's too dangerous to fight and not a lot of reward in return. When you think about it, we've got Regis and Haney coming up in December, right? If Regis wins, he's really the only guy that I think would say, I want to collect all the belts and become undisputed at 140 pounds. He's the guy that will go after Subriel. If Haney wins, I'm already hearing rumors of Haney talking about going up to 147 to fight Keith Thurman. He's not sticking around at 140 pounds. Ryan Garcia, do you think he's going to go after a guy like Subriel after being stopped by Tank? He's facing a puncher right now in Oscar Duarte in December, but Ryan has already been quoted as saying he wants the big fights. Does Subriel count as a big fight? I don't think so. Then you got Teofimo Lopez. Who knows what's going on with that guy, man? He turned down a fight with Ryan Garcia. Granted, it was a low ball offer, but that's a fight where he could make a lot of money. Turn that fight down. And now he's talking about possibly doing an exhibition fight in Honduras. I don't know where the guy's head's at, but honestly, I'm seeing the big names and nobody is looking like they're heading towards Subriel's direction. I think he's going to have to continue to chase these guys down.
Yeah,
Oh, and
Matias
there's
is
also this. Is it possible that this guy says to hell with it and moves up to 147 pounds?
he could if he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't find the fights at 140, and I mean, come on, but yeah, I think he'd move to 147. I mean, would you agree with me, David? That power probably carries itself to 160.
Well, I mean, It is different, man. It is different because he doesn't even
Oh
look
man.
like Mark. He doesn't
Yeah,
even look like he's swinging hard, and he's
yeah,
still
it doesn't.
discouraging these guys.
It's like he's got
So,
iron in there. He just like touches you and oh, like it hurts.
so we'll
Right?
see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I,
Wow.
I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want him to move up to 147 yet. He doesn't look like a big junior welterweight to me. But who knows? Maybe that power does go up, and he's just as effective.
Tell you what, Matias can give Haney trouble and Tank trouble. You know, he can give both of them some
Oh yeah, I
trouble.
know.
So
Well, I think
he
Tank's too
can
small for
compete.
him. Haney
He
is a
can come.
guy that I think that would be an interesting style matchup because Haney would look to box Subriel, and
Yeah,
Subriel will look to walk him down.
he is
Uh,
definitely going to compete with both of those guys.
Moving on, let's go ahead and go to Charlo versus Jose Benavidez Jr. Mark, you thought Charlo looked great. Tell us why.
You know why, David? Do you remember the 1994, 1995 Houston Rockets?
I do.
Remember they won it all? They
Yep.
won it all one year and they were on top of the world, right? They were the champs. They were on top of the world the next year. They started drugging, partying, all went downhill, right? Started going downhill. And then they cut all the bad guys that hang out, right? They cut them off. Sam Cassell shipped them out. Robert Ory, get the hell out of here. You know, Otis Thorpe, Tewacho. They brought in another guy, a steady guy. Clyde Drexler, come over here. Good guys. Get the bad guys out of there. Drugs, alcohol, that stuff. Let's get Clyde Drexler, a good guy. They went on, changed their attitude, stopped partying, refocused, and guess what they did? They went from last place in Clutch City, Houston, and they won a championship. Charlo did the same thing. He's cut the people out of his life that are doing bad with him, alcohol, drugging, partying, all that bad stuff. He cut it off while he was a champ. He got all those bad habits, threw him out the window, and I see the same thing happening. Clutch City, baby. He came in at his deepest, darkest times, came out clutch, looked great, looked good, sharp. That classic little uppercut where he makes himself small because he's such a big dude, but he makes himself look small, gets right under there, bam, hits him. Did you see the focus, David? The laser focus, his eyes on there looking like Michael Singletary from the Chicago Bears, middle linebacker, and big eyes deciphering the play. This guy was focused, he was sharp, he looked good. He said it himself, he's rusty. He didn't make 160. He could still make 160. It's just it was his first fight, his first game back after all that stuff. Clutch City, he's doing it for Houston. He's back. Redemption. I like what I saw.
Yeah, no, I disagree with a lot of that. I think he did look okay. Well, first of all, let me set this straight. Charlo was never the Houston Rockets of anything, bro. He was not the top of anything at 160 pounds. He won an interim belt. He never beat a champion at 160. He was never the man at 160. So let's clear that up. Number one. Number two,
WBC
I thought he
championship.
looked okay. I thought he looked okay for a guy that came off a 2.5-year layoff and he fought a smaller man, 154 pounder, when he was a 167 pounder, basically a super middleweight versus a junior middleweight. And I thought he looked okay. I didn't see anything special. That laser focus that you saw, that was because the commentators saw his eyes really wide open and he was looking at Benavidez for one round. I think it was the fifth.
He was focused that round.
Yeah, but that he doesn't mean he was focused the whole fight. Honestly, I actually saw a lot of troubled spots. He allowed the smaller man to back him up for most of the fight. Benavidez was getting a lot of shots off on him, Mark. I think if Charlo was in there with anybody like a top 20 middleweight, we would have saw some issues, a lot more arise. However, I think he needed this fight. He needed to go rounds. He needed to be pushed by a fighter who was not in danger of knocking him out. I think they need to keep him on this level of fight for at least another couple fights if they're really serious about Charlo's comeback. If he goes in and tries to face a top 20 middleweight, he could be in danger of losing that fight.
A top 20 middleweight?
Yeah, top 20, top 15. I think he needs to stay away from anyone like that could pose any problems for him because he could get derailed. I saw a lot of uncertainty in him. He didn't look confident during the fight. If you look during the corner, you heard Ronnie Shields constantly tell him, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. It'll be okay. Does that sound like words that you would say to a fighter who's winning a fight or who is confident? I don't think so. You even hear Charlo after the post-fight interview, he could barely talk into the mic. He was talking, very whispering into the microphone. And they asked him, what division are you going to fight in? He said, this division. You know what division he was in? It was a super middleweight division. It wasn't the middleweight division. So I just think he's not still all there confidence-wise and even maybe mentally in the game. It was a step in the right direction. I think they need a couple more before they start trying to claim Charlo's back. Let's move on to the main event, Mark. This was the fight we were really waiting for, the fight that I think a lot of people were waiting for, Benavidez versus Andrade. This was Andrade's time to shine. This was Benavidez's time to prove that he is a true star at 168 pounds and the real monster of the division. Mark, I thought Benavidez looked great. What about you?
You know what? Benavidez looked outstanding. He shut me up. I kept saying Benavidez was not ready and undeserving of a Canelo fight. After Saturday, I've eaten my words. He deserves it. And I hated the fact that he was always clamoring for it because I didn't think he deserved it. And I just hate people who call out Canelo because it's just so unattainable, right? He's that good. But he deserves to call him out when he wants to. I'm not going to be annoyed by it because everybody calls out Canelo, but he is a fighter that has earned the right to call him out. I laid an egg on this one, called it completely wrong. I thought a hell of a lot more of Boo Boo than anybody else did. I really thought he had what it took to beat Benavidez, but a lot of that had to do with me not believing in Benavidez because of the competition he, has beat. But after Plant and after this, yeah, he deserves it. And if he can get it, give it to him. I don't think he'll get it. I don't think Canelo's going to be in the game too much longer. In my opinion, I think he's going to finish out his contract, which is 2 more fights, and go after the sunset. But if he does get it, awesome for Benavidez and great for his legacy, win or lose. But for Canelo, it doesn't matter.
I'm with you. I think Canelo's legacy is already set, but for him to take a fight in May and then set up this Benavidez fight to be his final fight under the PBC contract and possibly just retires right off into the sunset, it's the perfect last box to check. The guy that people have been claiming he's afraid of, I don't believe that. I never believed it. But for him to actually shut the mouths of those people and take on David Benavidez, who looks like he's proven his worth at 168 pounds now, I think that's the way to go. And Canelo's the kind of prideful guy where he keeps hearing the name over and over again. I think he'll decide to go ahead and cross that name off his list and give the fans the fight that they want to see. He always claims about being a man of the people, a people's champion. This would be the time to prove it. I wouldn't be surprised if he does take on Benavidez. Mark, talking about Andrade, one more thing that kind of bothered me about him, and this is for all the people that were making videos about how Andrade was so avoided and no one wanted to take a chance against him. Call BS. The fact of the matter is no one wanted to fight Andrade because there was no reason to fight Andrade. He never gave anyone reason to fight. The man never fought a world champ, never fought a former world champ. And he waited until he was 35 years old in order to take his first prove-it fight, and look what happened. He waited too long. He couldn't fend off the younger, stronger fighter, and it showed. Not to boo-boo on boo-boo, but I think this is an example of where boxing goes wrong. Fighters try to ride the coattails of other fighters waiting for that big fight instead of proving that they deserve it in the ring. Andrade's a good dude. I enjoyed learning more about his personality on the build-up to this fight. I wish him well. He says he wants to continue in the game. We'll see what happens after that. Did you get a chance to watch Taylor versus Cameron? after all?
I didn't, David, get to watch it, but I was really interested more in the numbers. I'm just mind boggled at how much Katie Taylor moves the needle over there in Ireland, and it was another success. She completely sold out again, but it's unbelievable that she's a two-time undisputed
But
champ, and
but
also
and she's beaten champions for every one of those belts. She didn't win interim titles, so she did it the hard way. She earned her titles by fighting champions.
I'm astonished at Katie Taylor and Yocasta Valle at how much they move the needle in their countries. This was the biggest event, probably the both Katie Taylor's fight this year. And remember that Ireland is a big soccer country. Both of her fights were the biggest events this year in Ireland
Yeah,
on
and she's
TV.
really popular there. If you watch the
Yeah,
fight, you
I
can hear
didn't
the
get to
crowd.
see the fight, David. You saw it. Give us a little bit of background on it.
If you listen to the fight, the crowd was super into her match, man. It sounded like a damn soccer game. It might as well have been a soccer game, the way that they were cheering and singing during the fight. They reacted to everything she did, man. If she threw a 3-punch combination and landed a jab, they roared for her. It was a close fight. It was pretty good. It was a lot of action, way more action than Shakur versus De Los Santos for sure. And I gotta say though, I think Katie. There's one thing that annoyed me during this fight was Katie's mauling and hugging. She held and clenched almost after every combination. It was maddening to see sometimes. There was a lot of good action in the fight, but Katie was doing a lot of holding, man. I think the ref should have stepped in a little bit more and even docked her or at least given her some warnings about the holding because it was excessive. We've got to see a third match. They've talked about a trilogy fight. I think they need to make it happen. Like you said, this fight sold a lot the first time in Ireland. It's sold again the second time. It will sell just as much the third time.
It was sold. I was reading both fights, both events, tickets, not pay per views. Both events were sold out within a month of their announcements.
Yeah. So again, she's very popular, bro. She's super popular. So it makes sense to do it again. I'm sure Cameron likes the paydays, and I think she would like a shot at it. There is something that she could do. She was throwing a lot of one punch. She would just throw a shot one at a time. I think if she started mixing up if she just added another punch to those combinations, throw some two or three shots at a time, I think she would have been a lot more effective. Something I noticed about Katie, she starts to fade late in fights. You see her get tired. You see her get sloppy. Cameron still looks strong at the end. If Cameron were to throw more than one punch at a time, I think she could do some damage and possibly wear Katie out a lot sooner.
Yeah. And that's it, David. You want to go ahead and close out the show there?
You fucking do it. You're a fucking asshole with all the money. You do it. No. What is it? La Bamba. You're the asshole with all the money.
You're the
Why don't you buy
asshole
it
with all the
yourself?
money. You can buy it yourself. Hey, you did a great job. Eres el conductor.
Well, Mark, let's wrap it up right here. That was a good weekend of boxing. I think we've got some more boxing to look forward to.
You know what? We're going to be on Friday. We're going to be at the redowlboxing.com. Look it up. Redowlboxing.com is putting on a show with the Zone. We will be there. It's the Giovanni Marquez fight. Redowlboxing.com. Get on there. Look at the event. It's going to be streamed by the Zone. And it is Friday night, the Zone show before the Ryan Garcia show on Saturday night. But we'll be there with the Zone on Friday night for you guys.
Sounds good, man. So, hey, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next video.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. We're at 327 subscribers. We now need 172 subscribers more.
You did that math in your head, Way, or did you already write it out?
No.
Putazos y pendejadas.